Self-care and relationships. Hi, I'm Allegra Ramos, your local brain science-based productivity and time management expert. And you might wonder how self-care fits in with time management and productivity. Well, I believe that if you don't take care of yourself, you don't have any energy or bandwidth left over to do all of the other things that you might want to be doing in life, which is why I talk about self care so much and why I've been talking about it so much in the last 3 or 4 months, as I've been calling this a season of self care, because I know that I have personally been finding the last year or so to be challenging, both with external circumstances and things going on in my own life. And one of the things that really helped me to understand the importance of self care was when heard a mom whose child had been diagnosed with cancer saying she knew she had to be pristine. That was the word I remember her saying, pristine with her sleep, her exercise, and her food because she couldn't afford to get sick. She wanted to be in perfect health in order to show up as the best version of herself in all areas of her life. And I feel like that's just the best reason to prioritize yourself through self care because it allows you to show up how you want to be in all areas of your life, personally, professionally, relationships, all of that. And so I've been doing a season of self care. There's a QR code up here or this URL down here that you can go to and you can see all of the podcasts. I believe there are about 15 at this point. And I've been talking about all the different aspects. I started with skincare because I feel like that's low hanging fruit. It's something that people like if your skin doesn't feel or look the way you want it to look, I feel like that was kind of low hanging fruit. Me personally, my skin used to be so dry, it cracked and it literally felt like broken glass. That's how I would describe it to any skincare experts. I'd say, my skin feels like broken glass. What can I do for that? And then I talked about the things that you put in your body. So, supplements, hydration, nutrition. Again, I'm not a medical professional, nor do I play one on the internet. These have just been things that I have found have helped me personally. Then I talked about movement and I talked a lot about fascia because I really think that fascia explains so many aches and pains and body not quite functioning the way you want it to be functioning. And it's just not well known yet. I also talked about creativity. And today I'm going to talk about relationships and how making time for people who are important in your life is also a form of self-care. And next week, I'm going to talk about next week is in a lot of ways the end of the season of self-care. However, next week I'm going to talk about how to start anything. So maybe you've been listening to Season of Self-Care all this time and you've been thinking, this is great, but I don't know how to start. Well, then join me for next week because that's what I'm going to talk about. Because I don't expect you to implement all of these things at once. That is pretty much a surefire way to set yourself up for failure. That's just not how our brains are designed. Our brains are not designed to try and do 15 new things all at the same time. That's why New Year's resolutions don't work out. What you need to do instead is find one of them, pick one, and introduce it in your life in a little way. And so we will talk about that next week, how to start anything. So pick the one, hopefully between now and then, now and next week, you can listen to the season of self-care, decide which one you want to pick, and then use what I talk about next week, the training I'm going to give you about how to start anything. Use that to help you start with the thing that you want to do. Okay, so as I've been saying, if you've been listening, thank you for joining me. If you are joining me live, you're welcome to chat. I'm happy to answer questions if I think that they need to be addressed. And if you're just hanging out listening, thank you for joining me. Be sure to like and subscribe wherever you're listening. It helps me to know what content is resonating with you. And by the way, if you ever want more from me, I did write these 4 books. They're actually workbooks and they're all designed to be read in an hour or less. And you can find those at my website, this BYW Dreams If you go there, you'll find the link to my books. So if you don't know where to start, I feel like the best place to start is the 3-2-1 Done. This was my bestseller, Three Simple Strategies to Get Your To-Do List Done, because this book is basically kind of like helping you create more time. And who can't use more time in the day? So at the top of every podcast, I like to do a couple things. One of them is I like to share interesting facts about the countries where my listeners come from. And it's always so fascinating. My podcast is heard in over 90 countries, last time I counted. And the top ones, the US is always number one, but the top ones, there's a lot of jostling around that's been happening, which is fun. And so I like talking about the different countries that have been up there. And Italy popped up into the top 10 for the first time this month. And so I thought I would share some interesting facts about Italy. You might not know, Italy actually has the oldest university in the world. It actually predates Oxford by just about a decade. The University of Bologna, founded in 1088. And actually, this is the university that actually coined the word university. Interesting thing, Mussolini changed the name of Mickey Mouse because he didn't want foreign words to pollute the Italian language. So Mickey became Topolino, Donald Duck was Paperino, and even the 5 letters of the alphabet that were not used in Italian, J, K, W, X, and Y, were banned. Wow. Okay. Another interesting fact is that Italians have a word for a evening stroll because it's kind of a national pastime. And I know this is something I've experienced when I've been to Italy, is especially the small towns, is you'll see right around like 6 o'clock, people just out for a stroll, but in mass, right? So it's noticeable. And it's called a passeggiata. So that's a nice practice that I feel like we should all be doing passeggiatas. Just a good idea. Tomatoes, which I think a lot of us really think of Italy and tomatoes going together, but tomatoes were actually introduced to Italy from Peru. I didn't know tomatoes were native to Peru. That is so fascinating. So in the 16th century, so I guess around the time that a lot of those explorers were heading out to the Americas, North America and South America. So thank you so much for joining me, Italians. Oh, yes. Sorry. I have to share one last fact because this is actually a fact that one of my closest friends, he's from Rome, and he always makes fun of me because I don't drink a lot of coffee. So when I drink coffee, it's usually because I'm out at a restaurant and I want it to be an enjoyable experience. Like when I do drink coffee at home, it's always just black. And so I always want to order a cappuccino when I'm having coffee. And my Roman friend is very, very strict. Cappuccinos should only be drunk in the morning and never after dinner. And he gets really upset with me when I order an post meal cappuccino and it's not morning time. So there you go. Interesting facts about Italy and how some Italians might take their whole coffee thing a little too seriously. Okay. So the other thing I want to do is grab a card. By the way, for those of you who are in the Southern California region, I'm going to be speaking at an event called the Reclaim Wellness Gallery. And if you go to my Instagram, you'll see lots of information about it there. And I'm trying to pull up the link for it, but the internet is not cooperating. There we go. Okay. So it's a free event. It's happening in Lakewood, California. It's a 2-day event in partnership with the California Mental Health Services Authority. So cool. I'm very excited. I'm going to be speaking about self-care is healthcare on Saturday, May 23rd at 11 a.m. And you can get free tickets. You do have to register, but the tickets are totally free. You can get them here at this URL. And I know it's a long URL, but there it is. I'm going to try and put it up as a QR code too. Let's see. QR code. Here we go. So if you click on this QR code here, reclaim event, you can get free tickets. And as I said, I'm speaking Saturday, May 23rd at 11 a.m. Very excited to be a part of that. It's going to be a great event. Hope I'm going to be hanging out for most of Saturday, a lot of Saturday, so I can see some of the other things that are happening. So, and it's a cool format. It's short talks, so like 20-minute TED Talk type of thing, and then the speakers will be hanging out afterwards to take questions one-on-one. And there's going to be a lot of activations, if you will, so activities that you can take part in all day long. But during the 20-minute speeches, everything will stop, but then everything will continue. So it's not like they're it's not long sessions of listening to speakers, which I think is a really, really nice format for this kind of event. So I'm excited to be a part of it. Okay, let's pull a card from my little deck of positive chaos. Let's see what it says. Your spark can become a flame and change everything. E.D. Nixon. Oh, E.D. Nixon, thank you. I don't know who E.D. Nixon is. Your spark can become a flame and change everything. So this really speaks to me personally because I always want to encourage you and everyone to be a spark in the world. We all have a spark, and your spark is completely unique. There will never be a spark like yours again. And I think that the point of life is to figure out what your spark is, develop it, and then share it with the world. And hopefully I'm doing that today with my podcast and then with my speaking and also with my comedy. And you are doing it in whatever way you can share your gifts. Okay, so I'm going back to, so again, if you want to join me for this event that's happening May 23rd, 22nd, 23rd, click on this QR code. And if you want to find the Season of Self-Care, this URL down here is where the Season of Self-Care podcasts are. So let's talk about relationships as self-care. I think that we've all experienced the ebb and flow of energy that happens when you spend time with other people. And there are some people who you spend time with, and the combination of you and that person, and maybe it's more than one person, but the combination of you and that person is synergistic and seems to create energy. You seem to leave that interaction feeling excited and uplifted. And then there are people that you spend time with who you don't even have to be doing anything physically active, but you leave that interaction tired and drained. When that is the case, I would say that you have to try and seek out the people who give you energy, because again, that's what self-care is about. Self-care, the definition of self-care, my favorite definition of self-care was from this doctor at Harvard Medical School who basically, I'm paraphrasing, said self-care is doing whatever you have to do in order to thrive physically, emotionally, mentally. And a lot of us have relationships where we might be drained by them, but we don't feel like we can not see that person. And I would invite you to ask yourself, is that really true? I have seen in my, 50 years of living, I have seen the fact that, not all relationships last forever. Not all friendships last forever. Not all familial relationships last forever. Some of them are here for, as I've heard described before, for a reason, for a season, or for a lifetime. There are people who come in and out of our lives because of circumstances, because we invite them in, but for whatever reason, it doesn't work out. And then there are those people. I hope you have someone in your life that you've known for an extended period of time, because it really is a beautiful thing to know someone for decades and to know that that person has your back and you have their back. That is a beautiful, wonderful experience. However, it might not always come from where you think it's going to come from. So, there are some ways that I really work to be purposeful about making sure that I'm getting to see the people who, when I see them, we lift each other up and it's fun and exciting to be together. And one way you heard me talk about it when I was talking about automating movement, one way I do this is by going on weekly hikes with some of these people. And I'll just say women because these happen to be women. These friends of mine that I really enjoy spending time with and we enjoy getting in regular movement. And so we decided to combine the things. And it's really fantastic because when you can find an activity that helps you to live multiple values, and if you do any search, I've talked a lot about living your values. Uh, I do believe that living your values is one of the key ways to be happier in life. And that's what I found for myself, at least. When I do something that hits multiple values, it's even more fun for me. So, hiking with friends, it speaks to my value of spending time in nature, spending time with people that I care about, and staying physically active. So, 3 values at once. And it's one of my favorite things to do. And I think that's exactly why, because it fulfills me in different ways. So, if you have friends that you know that you'd like to see more often, maybe adding an extra layer of activity around it will help to make it something that happens more regularly. Like, for instance, one of my friends that I hike with, she really enjoys doing ceramics, and so she has a friend that they do ceramics together, and so it encourages them. It's kind of like having an accountability buddy, like a workout buddy. It's like, "Oh, okay, are you gonna do ceramics? I'm gonna do ceramics. Let's do ceramics together." So it's great. It forces her to do something that she wants to do anyway, and she gets to spend time with this person. So, if there are things that you want to do, try to find someone that you care about to do them with you. I have another friend who she wants to write a book, and because she knows that I've written books, that this is something that we talk about a lot. It just gives us another interest aside from daily life to talk about. And, book clubs are a great way to spend time with people that you care about. Maybe, again, if you do any sort of activity, like you always hear about knitting groups, like textile fabrics are an easy thing to do with other people. So find a way, maybe take a class and find a way to get someone that you think might be interested in it to go with you. And then you get to do multiple things at one time, right? You get to move forward on this thing that you've been interested in, and you get to spend time with someone you care about. So that's one way to automate it. Another friend that I do that with is the friend that I play tennis with. He's just someone I enjoy talking to and spending time with. And so we have a regular appointment. We get in some movement, we get in time together. It's outdoors. So, again, just like the hiking, it's 3 values in one. Another thing that you can do is to automate talking to people who might not be nearby. So, for instance, I have a lot of friends and family who don't live in my vicinity, and I can't see them regularly without making an effort. And what I do is I actually will put into my planner every week to touch base with somebody who is someone that I haven't talked to in months. Because, I have some friends and family who we don't speak to on a regular basis, but I want to still know what's going on in their lives. I still want to be in touch with them. And so simply putting that reminder into my planner helps to make that happen and keep those relationships alive. Another thing that I do is my closest girlfriends, I would say they're more like sisters than friends to me. We actually get together once a year in person for a little vacation. And if you followed my podcast for a while, then you've seen some of those vacations happen. I've had those women on my podcast multiple times. And sometimes we plan it around work travel that one of us already has. So we once did a group vacation in Houston, which is not a city that any of us live in, but it was kind of in the middle. It's in the middle of the country, and so it was an easy place for us all to show up. Sometimes we've gone places where one of us has family that live, and so we go there and we share space together that way, and I look forward to that event all year long. It's it's almost like when you're a kid and you're looking forward to Christmas. For me, getting together with these ladies is like that. I have so much fun, I laugh so much, and just in terms of that whole, like, creation of energy, I really feel that, and it just feeds me for it's funny because it kind of feeds me, like, going into it because of anticipation, and it feeds me coming out of it. I mean, it really kind of feeds me all year long, knowing that I'll get to spend time with this group of people all together. I have another friend who she still stays in touch with most of the people that she roomed with in college, and they get together regularly. So that's kind of filling that same niche, which I think is so fantastic. So, if you can make it happen, if you have some friends that are out of town. By the way, these friends of mine, they were really all my friends. And I they had met a few times because of my wedding and that sort of thing. And finally I said, "Hey, would you be interested in getting together for vacation?" And they enjoyed each other so much, which makes sense because if they're my good friends, they probably get along. And so I selfishly said, "Hey, would you all wanna go on vacation together? I'd love to just spend time with each of you in a more share space with you." And they all said yes, and now it's become an ongoing thing. So, don't be afraid to bring something up like that. If you have these kind of disparate friend groups and you wanna bring them together, they might enjoy being brought together. My friends have very much enjoyed being brought together. So, that's been really cool. I need to take a sip of my hibiscus matcha, which I talk about in my podcast on hydration. So yeah, so plan a trip like that if you can. And then a final way that I automate spending time with people I care about is, and this kind of goes with the exercise one, but it's slightly different, is board games. So I grew up playing Rummy Cube or Rummy Cub. It doesn't have an E at the end, so I'm never sure how to pronounce it. But it's basically a rummy game, but it's tiles. So it's kind of like Rummy meets dominoes meets mahjong. So I grew up playing that with my grandparents, and it's always been my favorite game. And then when I was older in life, I also started playing mahjong with my grandmother. And when my grandmother was no longer able to play mahjong, I just felt really sentimental about it. And so I asked a group of friends of mine if any of them wanted to learn to play mahjong, and some people said yes. And so we got together and started playing mahjong together, and after a little while, I said, "My favorite game is Rummy Cube," and so I introduced them to Rummy Cube, and the funny thing is Rummy Cube is a lot like mahjong in certain ways because it's tiles, um, and also to the it's kind of the same with the runs and the of a kind. Anyway, so I introduced that to them and they all love it as much as I do. And so I have these group of friends that I get together to play board games with regularly. So, board games or puzzles or building models or painting or drawing, if any of those are things that are interesting to you, you can do them with other people as well and share space with them, and then it kind of amplifies the entire experience because, again, it's multiple values. It's spending time with people you care about, it's doing an activity you like, maybe you do it outside or you do it in nature or whatever the case may be. Doing that feeds you in multiple ways. And that is what self-care is all about. It's all about doing the things that fill you up, that give you energy, that, there's that saying, you can't pour from an empty cup. No, really, you should be pouring from an overflowing cup. And when I make sure to spend time with people that I care about who help to fill me up energy-wise, I'm always happier for it. And, I do believe that one of the identifying traits of humans when I was studying anthropology is that we are social animals. And the reality is that our modern life doesn't allow for a lot of in-person socializing, at least in urban environments. Maybe in rural environments is different, although in rural environments, it seems like the houses are far apart. But the more I seek out opportunities to interact with people that I like, the happier I am. And I think that speaks to the fact that humans are social animals. So if you are finding yourself down, low energy, find a way to connect with someone. So hopefully, someone that you care about, that together you lift each other up. And if not, hey, explore an interest of yours. Maybe take a class. It could be a tennis class, it could be a knitting class, whatever. There's so many of these things available to us. Take advantage of that. Make some new friends. Find someone that you share interests with. And maybe this is one of the things that is missing in your self-care rituals is time with people who matter. On the flip side, I also do want to say that there might be times in life when you feel like it's time to separate from someone, the person that you feel like is draining your energy or bringing you down. And, I think that's one of the hardest things about getting older is realizing that there are these people who've been in your life for a long time who I've always thought to myself, if I'm not enjoying this person 51% of the time, then I should not be spending time with this person. And it's a hard thing to do, especially if you're the sort of person who values loyalty and, history, which I certainly do. But I've had to do it a few times in my life. And I've always felt like the mental benefits of removing someone who is draining, or, I don't want to use some of the other terms that are more loaded, but just, when you feel like spending time with someone is not serving you, it's probably also not serving the other person either. It's just become a habit that you've spent time together. So I just want to give you permission to consider that and say, you know, sometimes things come to an end. It doesn't mean that it won't start back up later on. Maybe you all will find a way to reconnect. But there's nothing wrong with letting go of a relationship. I do think that letting go of things creates space to welcome new things into your life. So make time for the people who matter. It will do you a world of good. It will do them a world of good. I think it would uplift the whole world if we were all spending time with people we liked. And thank you for joining me for this season of self-care. I have enjoyed putting it together. I know it's been a bit of a departure from the topics I'm usually covering, at least in this amount of depth. Like, I've really gone into self-care. I've never gone into it this deeply. But join me next week when I will talk about the ways to start something new. And be sure to like and subscribe wherever you listen. It helps me with the algorithm and it costs you nothing. And thank you for joining me. Remember, planning makes everything easier. Bye.